up, everybody? Welcome to Free Lady. This is episode, I think this is going to be episode 14. I'm doing another interview tomorrow at like 7 a.m. And I think that's the one I'm going to post on Monday. I have that with Dr. D. So everyone, you guys, Nick knows who she is. So that's really exciting. I'm really excited to have Nick on here today. We're friends because of our coaching group, and it's really, really awesome. So I'm very grateful for that. That is the one thing I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for fall is coming, and I'm grateful for, I have a little new setup, you guys. You guys like this? I mean,
it looks good.
Right? I'm always trying like new spots in the house.
That chair's got a very like Game of Thrones,
I know.
big vibe.
I know, right? It's actually, I keep this on my bed and I was like, yo, I'm going to throw this over my chair and look like I'm in Game of Thrones since, that's.
So you're going to post Dr. D's interview before mine. I'm going to have to follow her interview.
You
better have some really good questions for me if I have to follow Dr. D. So
yeah,
I remember my interview with her, and it's a lot to listen to.
I know. I'm really, really excited. Well, I just had Scott and Nan on here. So it's just really cool. This community is just so amazing. So you guys, this is Nick. Again, we met through the den. And so Nick, go ahead and introduce yourself. What do you do? And how did you get to where you are today to becoming a free man?
So I am, as stated, Nick Hoffer, the holster guy. I make gun holsters and part of mine. So how I met you was in the Lion's Den, and I do a daily live series on Instagram where I interview entrepreneurs, business owners, and members of the Lion's Den. Almost every day. We've taken a little bit of a hiatus the last couple of weeks, have been hit or miss, but I had to get remotivated, and I think that's what my journey today was about. And so we'll be back at it in the next couple of days.
Oh, well, that's awesome. That's awesome. So a lot of times, we have, like, I've heard a little bit of your background story when you were talking to, oh my gosh, I'm having a brain fart. It's kind of,
I've talked to so many people, so just throw something out there.
Yeah, she's amazing. I'm gonna have her on my channel at some point too. She is beautiful, short blonde hair, wheelchair. Yeah. So you were talking about your childhood a little bit there, and I was like, ooh, that goes a little deep. So I want to know.
You'll have to remind me what I talked about in my childhood. I don't have my story totally dialed yet. I've really been working on honing my story for when I do interviews so that when people want certain points, I always hit those. So I actually started writing it down. So if everybody's read Dan Fleyshman's How to Build Your Personal Brand for Under $1,000.
I have that.
He talks about building your personal brand and writing your brand story. And so I've actually been working on that the last week because I know what my brand story is, but dialing it in and being able to repeat it over and over so that when people meet me or see me, they know the story. I've really struggled with that. And so I've started to pull out. So I'm not quite sure parts of my childhood I shared, but I'm an open book. If you remember, I can back for you.
Yeah, I just remember, I don't remember everything that you guys talked about, but I was like, man, he was on a journey, from when he was a child to getting where he was today. So what was a part of your life where you were in a place in your life where you maybe were like, I need to change something, I need to do something, and then you created the company that you were in? Like, did you have like a good childhood growing up? Did you have like a role model to look up to know that like I can do this? Or what was that point in your life when you were like, I can do this, I can, have this great company where I have, a great following, I have a great system, I have something that I believe in to change people's lives in a gun holster? Because you obviously speak very powerfully about a
So
lot of.
the gun holster for me is really different. Gun holster is the product that I make, but the journey to get to this product has been 34 years in the making, since I was born, right? So um I was born, my mom and dad, my mom got pregnant when she was 18. My parents married when they were still in high school. They were married for a year, got divorced. Mom has been married 7 times. I've had 5 dads. Great
Wow.
people, great guys. Both dad was a drug user, went to prison, barely saw him. But when I did see him growing up, he was my hero, right? Because he was
Yeah.
that mythical father figure that I hadn't seen, that I didn't get to see a lot. But him have a great relationship. We've gone through some really rocky times, but he's always stayed a part of my life.
Yeah.
And so there was a time in my teenage years where I refused to speak to him because of the things he was doing and some lies that me. We got through that. He's actually a drug and alcohol now. To fast forward it way forward, uh,
Wow. That's great.
writes curriculum for the state of Idaho for drug and alcohol. So big. He
Wow.
has a good story of his own,
Yeah.
but that's kind of where I didn't have dad right there in my life. All the time I had a lot of different men who imprinted on my life as I grew up. One of those was my grandpa. I grew up with my grandparents off and on as a child. So probably 4 or 5 times throughout my childhood, I lived with my grandparents. So
Yeah.
you could say they were pretty much my parents for a while. Mom
Right.
was young. My mom had a lot of stuff going on, single mom, uh, married full times. I have 2 other sisters that also have 2 different dads. So it
Yeah.
sounds like a crazy life, but
Yeah.
mom is really a person. She's a great mom. There was just a lot going on, and she was young, had to do some things, move around, and
Yeah.
I chose to stay with my grandparents. Fast forward, my mom was married to my oldest sister's dad for probably years. So probably the long up until her husband now, who her and John have been together for 11 years, will be together forever. He's 8.
Oh,
But Mike grew up my dad. Like he was my stepdad. I called my dad. My dad was still in the picture. I saw my dad probably a month at that point in my life. But my taught me to hunt. He taught me how to fish. He got me into football. He got me into wrestling. Like he was dad. Like, and I used to go to work with him. He
yeah.
worked for the gas company. So the natural gas company here is called Intermountain. It was a service tech. So I used to go to work with him. I got to see what he did. Um, kind of fun stuff as a kid. Like I really loved working, right? So I was like, oh, this is a cool career. Like he gets whatever he wants. Like he on call, like and then he was a volunteer firefighter, which that right there had if you've heard the rest of my story, that had a big comes into play down the road for me with him being a volunteer firefighter. Um, that's something that I really, really want to do. I had 3 dreams when I was a teenager: be a firefighter, be in the military, or be a professional athlete. I was like 110. I was like 97 pounds going up. So that was neither of those were happening. So I was gonna go. I grew up in a town here, Mountain Home Air Force Base. Was just figured I'd go in the Air Force, right? That's pretty much what kids that don't have ambition to go to school, because I
Yeah.
had grades, I hated school.
Yeah.
I barely graduated high school, not because I was dumb, but because I like to go. I thought that snowboarding was much more important than high.
Oh, yeah.
So my mom and Mike got divorced when I was a junior in high school, and mom got remarried a year later, and she moved to Washington, and I stayed in Mountain Home with my girls. So I'm a teenager. I'm an independent student. I had a really good job, because I always just from the time I was 12, right? I have money, and I'm gonna be a professional snowboarder. So all my friends older than me, all of them went snowboard because they were out of school. So I would go to school. I would check into my first class, turn in all my assignments, and then I would sign myself out in the office. I would literally walk to the office, sign the sheet, and say appointment. And the lady in the office would say, okay, see you this afternoon, because she knew I was coming back before the end of school, because my grandparents would catch me if I didn't come home and the bus home.
Oh my God.
But
I
there was
love
nothing the school
stories.
could do about it because I was an independent student. I could sign my own note. Right? So
Right.
I missed 51 days the month of January, my senior year in high school.
My God. I mean,
So I didn't have one full day of school that month because it was 2006. It was the best I had in years. It started snowboarding in October and went all the way graduated. And so my principal was my 6th grade gym teacher. So he had been my teachers from the time I was in like 5th or 6th grade. I went into his office. I said, hey, we got to do to graduate. Like I had 2.1 GPA. My absences are through the roof. And he looked at me and he goes, Nick, here's what you need to write down. Out, turn it in. I will make sure you don't come back to my school. And I said, oh, Mr. Johnson, thank you. And so I did exactly 20. I turned it in and I asked him, I said, hey, so am I going to get a diploma? And he goes, well, I guess you'll find out once it goes to the school board. And so I walked the stage and didn't know for 3 weeks after if I actually graduated. My
oh,
parents, my parents came to town. Like we had the graduation party. I had dummy diploma everyone else got. And in the back of my head, I was going, oh my God, like they might be pissed when they find out that I didn't get a diploma
yeah.
because I wasn't going back. Like
Right.
I
Right.
wasn't going back. And so that's
Right.
kind of, I've told some of that before, but not kind of really in depth. So, yeah, I could have been a high school dropout, but I somehow put it out. I got decent grade. My highest math class was geometry. I regret that because math is one of my everyday skill sets that I use. It's probably the only thing from high school that I use.
Right. I hate math, but great for you.
I have a hate relationship with math. I love making money and I love my business. Business has to do with manufacturing, so there's a
Yeah.
lot of math. There's a lot of
Yeah.
algebra, a lot of geometry.
Yeah.
Those coefficients and those in math that you always thought were really, really stupid. I use those every single day.
Isn't that funny? It's so funny to me that things that you just totally think are so dumb in high school. I mean, I definitely started snowboarding too in high school and I was in California. So like Mammoth was like right there. And I'm like, I'm going to move to Mammoth. I'm going to be a professional snowboarder. But then again, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. So that's not what happened for me either. But
So I
again,
have
it's great
I
that
when
you
I
have
was
skills.
when I was 18 years old, turned 18 in February, the year that I graduated, and my mom asked me what I wanted. Told her I wanted to get a tattoo. So she gave me $150 to get my first tattoo because she was like, if you're gonna get it, I'll pay for it. And so right here on my chest, I have this mountain, and it's a mountain, but it's an M. And so the guys that I used to snowboard with, we call ourselves the Mountain Mafia. And so I have this tattoo on my chest, and everyone was supposed to get it right. I was the only one. And
Yeah.
so now 35 years old, and I go to the lake. I have to answer this question almost every single time. Hey,
Really?
what is that tattoo? And I'm like, oh God, here we go.
You're like, don't worry about it. I'm a really big deal. I'm a big deal. So that's all you gotta say. So you went into the military after that. You
I
did
did go into the
it or
military. I
you did
tried to go in the
tried.
military.
Okay. And then
So
what'd you do after that?
So I tried to go in the military. It didn't happen. I was working on some stuff that I needed to get in. And what actually ended up happening was I ended up having done in the process of doing all of the work I needed. I have a knee surgery and they were being kind of picky on who they wanted for the force. And
Right.
so they wanted me to to kind of take care of some of the medical issues I had. And in that time, my girlfriend got pregnant and I had my son, and they gave me an option. They said, well, here's the deal. You can get married, give up custody of your son. And I said, well, you're crazy. I'm getting married. My mom's been married sometimes. Like, divorce is not for me. And
Wow.
I'm definitely giving up custody of my son because that I have daddy issues, right? Like I'm not
Right.
doing that either. So
Yeah.
I made a commitment right there that I wasn't gonna go in the military. Because
Okay.
I didn't want to, because there was just too much going on in my life right then,
Right.
and felt like there might be some other ways that I could do something big with my life.
Yeah.
Not knowing what it was, but from that point on, I'm like, okay, well, I take my SATs. I didn't get good grades in school. Well, I guess college is an option because I'm not going to spend 30, 40, $100,000 on a degree or an attempt to degree in something
Right.
that I don't know what I'm going to do, right?
Right.
And I have a baby coming, so I need a job. I need to have money coming in. And oh, by the way, I also have a girlfriend who's pregnant who is either going to go to college or I don't know what, because she just graduated too.
Wow.
Um, so what ended up happening was we paid to go to dental school and I got a job.
Okay.
I took a job working at a restaurant and I decided it was a family friend owned the restaurant. I decided I was going to work every position. So I started as a bus, worked my way all the way up to be the regional manager of like 4 locations. Did every position I could do, from bussing tables, washing dishes, to cooking, to waiting tables, everything. I
Yeah.
did payroll, everything, and my entire goal was to learn how to operate a business. Like I had worked inside businesses before, and in high school and other things like that, but always did labor jobs. I always
Yeah.
thought I'd be a mechanic, I'd be in the Air Force, I'd be a mechanic in the Air Force.
Right.
The Air Force wasn't going to work out. Like, oh, I'll go to mechanic school. I'll be a mechanic. I had to work on cars. That was my passion.
Yeah.
Um, sh- Short story with that, I got a job as a mechanic, realized that it ruined my passion.
Interesting.
I could for work, like every day I changed oil on cars, ruined my passion to want to go home and build cars. So I was like, yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah.
So as I worked through just kind of like fast forward through all of this, I worked through the restaurant. I did that for probably 5 or 6 years until um, there came a point at that company where I had to make a decision. The owners came to me and they basically said, you take a side in this or you're fired. And I was like, well, I'm going to my people who work for me side because that's what's right. And I quit. They'd say that they fired, but I really, and
Yeah.
the next day the next day after that, I took a job with a best friend from high school's parents, uh, working at their engine repair shop as a salesman. And so I did that, and I did that for probably 8, 9 months and I had invested money into it. I'm going to open my own store and sell lawn equipment for landscape companies. And 8, 9 months later, his parents came in. They said, "Hey, Nick, we're actually going to shut down and we're going to move to Arizona and retire."
Oh man.
And I was like, "Oh shit! What about that money?" And they're like, "Yeah, we're going to give you your money back, and we're just going to shut doors." And I
Wow.
was
And
like,
you're like
"Oh."
probably thinking like, I got
So
this kid
I
coming.
didn't mention this, but right when I had that decision to quit the restaurant, I just bought a house.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I just bought my first house. It was 2009, so it was right after the housing crash. I just built a
Yeah.
house, and now I don't have a job,
Shoot.
and I don't have a job to go to. Like I always had options, right? Like
Yeah.
I could have left the restaurant any minute and went to a job, and I was like, well, shit, I don't even know what to do because I don't know what I want to do right now.
Right.
So I went home. I told my wife time. I was like, oh, I think I'm some time off. And she's like, no, you're not. You're crazy. Like, I've been seeing money since I was 16 years old. Like, I got this money back. Like, I'm gonna take some. So I took 4 months off work.
Oh,
I
wow.
looked for jobs, like, but I was like, I'm gonna take time off. I worked at a restaurant. If anyone's ever worked at a restaurant before and been in any type of like we worked holidays, we worked every single weekend.
Right.
I had Mondays and Wednesdays off.
Right.
Like every single holiday I worked, and I ran myself ragged working there. I made decent money, but it was a lot of work.
Right. Oh, yeah. You always hear that
So,
with people working in a restaurant for sure.
yeah, and so kind of in that time, I was like, I'm gonna hang out. I have this baby. Like I have this house. Like I'm just gonna have time off. Um, I wasn't the person I am now, so like I didn't understand like
Right.
what I could be doing. I wasn't doing it for any other than I like I just don't want to. I want time off.
Right.
And during that time, I had radio when I worked at the restaurant with a local church. One of the pastors at a local church did a radio show. He did a sports show, and I used to go on there and promote the restaurant quite a bit. And I ran into him at a Five Guys, and he asked what I was doing. He's like, "I haven't seen you. You haven't been on the show. Like, I haven't seen you at the restaurant. David said that you don't work there anymore." I go, "Yeah, I took this job, and now I'm kind of like in between jobs, like trying to figure out what I want to do." And he's like, "Well, our youth pastor just sent out an email and said the company he works for is hiring." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's cool. I'm not really." And he's like, "Well, it's kind of cool. You might like it for a gun company." I'm like, "Oh," and he's like, "No, no, I think they make guns." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." I was not a like I was I hunt, fish, I owned a hunting rifle. That
Yeah.
was it.
Yeah.
And so I knew nothing about the firearms industry. I knew nothing about concealed carry, shooting sports, AR-15s, nothing about any of this, right? And I'm
Right.
like, okay, cool. The guy was with me, my best friend at the time. He's like, dude, that's really like you need to call. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'll get a hold of him on Monday.
Yeah.
And so I get the email and I send my resume in, and Robert, the guy who's hiring, he calls me and he's like, "Yeah, I'd like for you to come in, interview. We're doing interviews." So I go in and it's like the shithole shop at the airport. I'm like, "Oh, okay, like whatever." So I go out there. It's right across the street from the National Forest or like fire service where they do all the airplanes and stuff for the
Yeah.
forest fires. So I'm
Yeah.
like, this is cool. Like they had planes landing. I'm like, that interests me. This dump over here that interests me, but okay, that might be cool to get a job where I can watch these planes. It was right on the airport. I'm
Yeah,
like, I
for
can watch these
sure.
planes and maybe I'll go get a job across the street, right?
Right.
And I go in there and I'm walking through and he's like showing me what they do. By the time I left there, I had no idea what they were gonna pay, but I was gonna work.
That's awesome.
And Robert goes, so do you conceal carry? Like, do you have a pistol? Like all, and he's like, you do 3-gun? I'm like, what's 3-gun? He's like, it's competitive shooting. I'm like sports for shooting. And he goes, yeah. And I go, no, I've never heard that. You can do that. That's legal. And so and like everybody who worked there was like a part of shooting, right? So someone who doesn't know, the gun industry doesn't pay shit,
Okay.
but you get perks of being a part of the industry, parts and discounts on guns and
Okay.
ammo and all of these perks, right?
Right.
So everybody that worked there was like a competitive shooter, like it was their they were big gun people. For
Wow.
me, I was there because I was like, man, these guys are running like making these guns from raw parts. Like that would intrigued me.
Right. Okay.
And for probably 4 months, I called him every single week. Hey, have you made a decision? Hey, have you decided who to hire? Swing by, like not like, hey, is Robert here? And have him come to the front, and he'd be like, yeah, I haven't made that. I'm like, hey, I just want to air maybe, and I'm not even close, right? Like live a whole ton away.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I would just swing by. I had this habit when I wanted jobs. Like I got a job as a welder once in Nevada when I was thinking about quitting the restaurant. I went to Winnemucca where I am, and I got an apprenticeship as a welder by doing the same thing. I called, I just was like the most interested person, though I had no skills.
Yeah. But
And
that's
so
awesome.
I knew this,
That's how you
so
get
I
you
knew this to work,
know.
right? And so finally he's like, okay, you're hired. Starting January 12th, 2010 is when I started.
Okay.
Like I know the exact date. January 10th, 2000 was when I started for Tactical Solutions. I was making $8 an hour.
Okay.
Job I had before that paid me $24 an hour.
Wow.
And I got my first paycheck and I was, I'm not gonna do this. I can't afford this. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't even pay me to come to work.
Right. Right.
I convinced him to give me a raise, $12 an hour in 3 months. I worked there for 3 years, making $12 to $13 an hour. I would write myself a check every single month to offset the money I wasn't making
Okay.
from some jobs so that I could work, because I was so intrigued by
Yeah.
part of this industry
Yeah.
and still to figure out what I was to do.
Yeah.
Loved that job. That's one of the few jobs I've ever had where I loved it so much I would have done it for free.
Wow.
And essentially, I paid myself for months to
Yeah.
do that job.
Yeah. Which is amazing. I mean, that's a lot of like fire that you had inside of you to know that this is what I'm passionate about. I don't care where it starts. I don't care, how
So
it
I don't even know that it's
starts,
passion.
or
I was
intriguing.
so interested in it. It was
Yeah.
something I had never seen before that
Yeah.
was right under my nose. And in the back of my mind, I had always been thinking, still, like I'm always thinking, every job I do is an education. Every job I do is my college degree. What can I pull from this? I had done several jobs in between, like while I was doing the other thing I talked about. When I was a restaurant, I learned how to do payroll. I learned how to do management. I
Right.
learned how to finance businesses. I learned how to be social. I worked for an insurance company during that time, so I learned sales. I learned
Yeah.
how to network market while I was working there. Like I was learning all of these things. I learned how to work with vendors when I was at the small engine repair place. I learned customer service. I did all of the customer service there. I did fleet sales. Like I learned all this. I was learning networking with businesses to sell them equipment.
Right.
And so all this time, I'm like, okay, I'm learning how to do this. So now when I start at Tactical Solutions, my thought head is, okay, how do I move up within the company? It's a big company. How do I move up?
Yeah.
Like it's at the ground level. I could be the top of this someday.
Right.
And so that was my goal, was to be there and work my way up. I was like, yeah, I don't start my own business. Maybe I use everything I've learned and work
Yeah.
my way up. Like,
Yeah.
the people who are here don't like they're at the top of their game all the way. There's room for somebody to move into some spaces.
Absolutely. I mean, you can just make your own position, but sounds like all these things that you didn't even know were setting you up for success for what you're doing today because of your determination. Your determination
And
for yourself, your family, because you had a family to take care of, and just like,
so
well,
in the back of my mind, I remember. So I didn't mention about my dad. My dad had a fitness repair business, so that he sold and did maintenance on gym equipment. And so I remember when I was like 10, 11, 12, like I would go stay at his house because at the time, like there was this time where he would write things and I got to go stay with him at his own business.
yeah,
And I remember right when I would go install equipment with him. And
yeah,
I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like he gets to go work when he wants. He's his own boss. He gets as much money he wants. Like these give us an extra $500 to install this equipment. Like it's cool. Like
right.
and I remember I was like, this is what I want to do. One day I want to own my own business. And that was when I was like 8, 9 years old.
Wow.
So all the way through that, like I always knew, even when it was either own your own business or go in the military. Well, the military got shot.
Right.
So I was like, eventually I'm going to own my own business. What I'm going to do, I have no idea. Like for a while, I chased the gym industry, right? I was like, well, that's what my dad did. I know how to do it, but I couldn't find anyone to teach me. So
Right.
I was like, well, I can't do that. So then I just kept going, okay, well, you're gonna need to know that. You're gonna need to know how to leverage credit. You're gonna need to know how to run
Yeah.
payroll. Like you're gonna need to know how to manage people. So in the back of my head, it was always the beneficial we go out on your own.
Yeah.
Is it going to be owning a restaurant? Is it going to be being a mechanic? Is it going to be selling gym equipment? I have no idea. What
Right.
I really didn't know is I was going to be in the fire industry. I had no vision, no dreams of being in the gun world, nothing like that.
That's
I didn't know people who keep guns growing up. I remember the first time I ever saw a guy carrying a pistol. It was a biker in a Jack in a Box in Mountain Home, Idaho, and thought he was gonna rob the place. I looked at the kid with me. I said, "Dude's gonna rob this place."
dang. Where do you think that like all your determination came from? Like when you knew something wasn't working, you're like, you didn't, you, it sounds like you just never gave up. Like, where did you learn that from of like not giving up and like, okay,
Well,
I got,
I think I mentioned that mom's married 7 times. She
yeah,
definitely has never given up on marriage.
yeah,
But at the same time, my mom has also been like a business for a lot of her life. So right now she owns a restaurant. She owned 4 before COVID hit. So she
okay,
had 3, starting a 4th during COVID. Before that, her and my aunt owned a restaurant together. And then when I was in high school, we moved to Washington. She owned a steakhouse. So
okay,
she's always like that's kind of always been something that I've seen. So
right.
between her, my dad, and then my stepdad, Mike, like I have very solid like work ethic.
Yeah, yeah. Cause your kids are always watching you and you also, your kids are watching you now and they're watching how strong how hard you're working, how strong you are, and those work ethics. And now you get to pass that on to your children is really fabulous. Because a lot of people, when they're growing up, a lot of them are like not seeing this. They have to learn it all on their own. And so to know that at such a young age is like really, really cool. I mean, not a lot of people like get to have that audacity to know that like I have to do this for me, my family, and the future. And that's really cool. I mean,
I
that's
don't know.
a neat thing.
I don't know that it was ever like a driving factor to me where it was like I have to do this. It was I don't want to have a job the rest of my life.
Yeah,
I
I get
don't want
that.
to have a boss the rest of my life.
Yeah, I
Like
get
I
that.
really when I was riding in my dad's truck with him, we were going to places like Cincinnati and installing home gyms for celebrities. And I remember in Sun Valley one time, and this lady gave my dad a watch as a tip, right? And
Mhm.
my dad handed me the watch and he's like, look at this watch. And he goes, that watch is worth $10,000. I was like, what the hell are you going to do with that? He's like, well, I'm going to sell it. But I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen for normal people. I was like, that's really cool. And so and would go on other jobs where we would go and we would like we there Idaho is a big for like bodybuilders. So there was like famous
Okay.
bodybuilders opening gyms here. Obviously, we have Sun Valley, so we have like a celebrity like there's a lot of celebrity there. So I
Okay.
got to see them, but then also we had people that were in like some of the, like pumping iron videos, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I was going to these gyms and I was like, "That's from the posters. This is his gym."
Wow.
That's really cool. I get to do work for these people.
Yeah.
Probably at the same time, like my dad had not I didn't grow up with him. I one I idolized him, even though I knew he was a fuck up at the time.
Right.
And two, he was all pumping that stuff for me when I was around. Obviously, you want to impress you. So he was like
Sure.
showing me the
Sure.
highlight what he did. And so I was like, this is really cool. Like I had this weird set what it was like to be a business owner, and it was about necessarily being rich. It's about the freedom.
Yeah. And you were learning like at a young age that, you saw like the next level. A lot of people don't see what that next level looks like until you're like in your 30s. You know what I mean? Like I really tapped into that in the last, you know, 10 years of my career. Like I'm like, okay, I need to go to the next level, the next level, the next level. And what does that look like? Who do I have to become to do that? And so it's really, really cool that you got to see like, I want to go here, I want to go here. It's the best thing being your own boss.
And
I'm my own boss, you
so
know.
you mentioned your next level. So something that we hear Sean say a lot within the Lions Den is talking about levels to this game, right?
Yeah.
And so I played at a certain level in my 20s. I played at the next level in my late, but I was never about money, right? I always like, oh, I'll get there, I'll do this, I'll get
Yeah.
here, like I'll have time for this down the road, and then realize, oh, I'm gonna fuck all that up. Like now I'm divorced, like I'm never get that time back. And so when I turned 30, which was 5 years ago, was really where I was like, okay, I have this, I built this other business. I'm not gonna do anything with that goes away with her. I put everything all on Hoftac. So what am I gonna do with it?
Right.
And that's kind of where the story that everyone else has kind of heard from me starts,
Yeah.
is where I quit my job at the gun company. I quit. I got divorced. I had a medical emergency where I had to have surgery and I could work. That's really where this journey started. But there's a lot of like everything we just really led up to that. And so that the last 5 years has been discovery. I had the skills, I had knowledge, I was trying to figure out direction. And I had gone every direction except for Dan for very long.
Yeah.
And to figure out
Yeah.
where I am now, and now this last year, now I know exactly where I need to go. I know exactly what I need to be doing. And I'm on my way. And I'm giving myself 5 more years to get all the way there and out of this and on something new.
So what did you learn? Like you said, like you were always up on the up. So you went into a downward spiral. Like what did you learn in there? Because that's where we learn the most.
So thing that I learned and a part of my learning journey. So when I met and I really learned that I could rely on somebody, I could like find somebody else, and really like I needed that person to go. One of the things that she really helped me with, the idea that like I don't have to be afraid to do certain things.
Yeah.
I played small because I was scared to lose.
Right.
And that's something I remember vividly, like when we were I don't even know if we were dating yet. And I was talking to her about a business deal that somebody that I worked with or who knew of me wanted to be a part of my business. I was like turning him down. So no, no, no. Like, I don't want to take your money. I don't want to take like your stuff, because back of my mind, it was, what if I can't deliver on what I say I can deliver on?
Hmm.
And I remember having that conversation, and she was like, it's not that you can't do it, that you're scared to let that person down.
Right. Right.
So I started thinking about that. I was like, yeah, it's not that like, oh, exact what he's asking for is exactly what I want to.
Right.
It's exactly where I need to go. But my fear is that somebody will trust me with their money or their something that's valuable, and I won't succeed.
Right. And that's a huge part of your life where you grow, because you're kind of in that space where, if you are afraid, that you're going to lose it with whatever contract or person or whatever, that's not having confidence in who you are, so that was probably like a time in your life where you had to believe in yourself, that like everything I give to this company, everything I give to these people, they can rely on me because I know I'm going to do it. I know I'm going to be the most badass person in this company. And so like, do you remember going through times where that confidence was building up for you to know that like, I am not afraid of the losses because the losses teach me the gains, and I'm confident with everything I do because it's just going to keep getting better because I want it to get better and I want to manifest that vibrancy for myself.
So
Remember like how
a
that was
position
for you in
I had
your
to go
mind?
to. So I've always been of like taking on all of the work, right? Like do all of the work. Uh, I've lived the employees that were involved. I do it all because then it fails. It was all on me. There was
Sure.
nobody else. There was nobody else that could fail. There was no one else's family on the line, no one else's money.
Yeah.
Until I got to the point where I am now, where like my family is too big to let it fail.
Mhm.
Right. So
Yeah.
I've gotten to the point where like I've taken on over the last few years. I've done so many jobs. I've been a to say no to jobs. So people will do this. I need yes, absolutely, I'll do it. And I've said yes to everything.
Yeah.
Now I'm to the point where I've started to say no. So I've started to quote jobs where I'm like, I don't care, get it, because if I don't get, something else will come.
Yep.
And I'm not going to take a job anymore that put everyone else around me out, because I've
Right.
been in that position teams. And that's something that I learned being down, was
Yeah.
that I would take on too much. It would cause me to fail.
Hmm. Right, right. And I think that's like a beautiful thing because you have to learn what it is to fail to grow. And once you get into that place in your business where you are allowing yourself to say no because you believe in yourself, you believe in the company, that the next best thing is coming. Like you have the ability to say no now, and that is like so amazing. But I don't, do you think that you would know this if you didn't fail, if you didn't go through all those steps?
No, so the journey that I've gone on the last 5 years, like I would not be at all where I am without every single thing that's happened in between there. And
Yeah.
one of the biggest things that I've learned, like me and Brenda have talked about too, is like every time I need something, it reveals itself.
Yeah.
So for the longest time, I would be like, man, I don't know how I'm gonna make next month bills. Holy shit, we have this job totally like fell on its knees, and then all of a sudden, $30,000 job, boom, falls in my lap. Like I've made it happen till now. It's like, okay, know that everything's gonna work out. So I don't prepare for the worst every single time.
Right. It's almost kind of like you naturally knew what it felt like when you got those jobs. You knew what that money felt like. You knew what it meant to be successful. And so once you feel that, you know, like even what Sean says all the time in the Lion's Den, once you taste that, like you don't ever want to not taste that again. And you know how to create that energetic energy for that to happen. Well, I might not be here right now, but I know it's going to be here. I know it's going to come
Now,
because I know what that
now
feels
my
like.
journey is this. It's getting past that limiting belief that I can't make millions of dollars. Like I know that it's possible, but I always spent my whole life going, yeah, I don't need a lot of money because money's not important to me. The experience is important to me.
Right.
And then the last couple of years, I was like, well, I need a lot of money to have those experiences. And
Yes.
so now I'm like, okay, now I need a shit money because he's not worth as much as it used to be. So
Right.
now I need millions of dollars. How do I get to that point? Because when we talked about level, right? I've the beginning level. I'm kind of in the middle. Now I'm ready to push into that next level. That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah. That is so, so cool. Um, it's just like, you know, I too in my career, like I love my job, right? I love making people feel confident in the way they look through their hair. It's amazing. I get have them sit in my chair, and we also have the opportunity to have like deep conversations, and I can add value to that. It's a beautiful 360 experience. And I always was like, it's not about the money, it's about what I do and helping people. But now, just like you, just in the last, like, I would say in the last couple years, like 2 or 3 years, where it's like, well, no, you know what? Money is very important to me because it allows me to expand. It allows me to create something bigger and add more value to my clients. It allows me to do this, like
Yep.
expanding where I found value, and like I have these amazing conversations. Why not expand that into the world through YouTube or wherever platform that other people use? And I have, really invested time into like reading books. I'm reading Amanda Francis's book, um, just how to make like a shit ton of money and like manifesting that, and having the ability, when you make a lot of money, you get to give that back. Like I definitely want to be on that level. I'm learning that money is absolutely important. It's not selfish. I don't have to feel guilty about wanting to make a lot of money, because I want to help people and with mental illness. I want to open a mental health clinic if I can make millions of dollars, and that's where I want to go, because it's helping yourself, it's helping others, and then it's giving back. And then, like you said, like you have your kids that are watching you, your kids are developing these amazing, beautiful things of wisdom through you to even like excel even more behind you. And it's just
I had
a beautiful thing. So, I've
I
never,
had a discussion
you know,
right before I came here. I stopped at my daughter's softball practice and I was talking to someone. We were talking about baseball, right?
yeah,
My son plays baseball, and he's going into high school. And he came to me and he said, "Dad, baseball is $500, but coach said if you put your banner on the field and you pay for the sponsorship, they'll take $200 off of the fee." And I said, "That's great, dude. For $5,000, you need $200 off. Give me the sign up so that I can buy the banner."
yeah,
And he kind of looked at me. He's like, "Oh, wow, I didn't realize it was that expensive." I said, You didn't realize it, but I'm still going to get there because I want to
yeah,
have our name there. And on top of that, when you have money to do it,
yes,
how much closer is when my son is on the cusp of maybe not making the team, but I donated to the baseball team, it puts me that much. I don't care what people say if they think of unfair advantage. I'm gonna take every single advantage I can,
yeah,
put all of them in the right position. So if
right.
that's buying a $30,000 banner to be on the top of that, which is mine, well, Dad, donate. I obviously want the best players on the team, but I also want my kids the advantage that I might not have
Absolutely.
had when I was growing up. And if that means I need to make more money to do it, then I'm going to make more money to do it. And I think that sounds really shitty to say if you don't do it the right way.
But it doesn't though. And I think like, my family, we grew up, we didn't really have anything, we were like super broke, and, there was 5 of us kids. My dad worked, my mom didn't. And so you kind of like, I knew I kind of grew up kind of guilty around money. Like I didn't deserve it, or like, I wanted to always, like, I'm very passionate about it. Money doesn't matter. Money doesn't matter. Like even back in the day, I'd give people
Yeah,
discounts.
I was the same exact way.
You
I
know, you
still
don't
that
have
way
to
in some ways. I have to tell
yeah,
myself not, yeah.
yeah, it's like sometimes I still do it sometimes where I'm like, oh, you don't have to tip. Like I'm just so like appreciative that you're here. Um, and people are like, you're crazy. Why do you say that? And I'm like, well, because it is up to you. That is a choice that you make because of my service. And so I had to really learn through all of that I was valuable, like you're valuable, like I am valuable, and I'm worthy of making a lot of money through something that I love and I'm passionate about. And so that's definitely been something I've been learning, even just this last year, like ever since, I've joined the Lion's Den, of like learning that it's okay to not feel guilty around money, because a lot of people do. And I think that's why a lot of people don't understand the frequency of money and what it does, because oh, like money changes people and money doesn't buy you happiness. Yes, it does. Yes, it does, because we're good people. Like, obviously there's a lot of millionaires out there that might take,
Money does change people. It makes good people great people.
and I was just gonna say that it can either go really bad, but if it's coming from a good place, and I feel like I will have that value my whole life because I want to do so good, it'll make me like a better person, because I'll be able to live the way I want to live and be able to give it to, this is my society, of helping others, to have that ability to give back and help others.
The
It's
thing,
really important
the
to
thing
me.
that changed my mindset years ago about getting rich was this. I had a mentor, Gary McCrummon. He told me the insurance business. He told me, because I used to say, Gary, I don't need a lot of money, I just need enough to be with you, right? And he goes, well,
Yeah.
that's relative. He goes, happy for you and happy for me are two totally different things. He made $1 million a month. I didn't even know that was like, I thought that was a joke when he told me that. Years later, where I was like, oh, he actually really does make $1 million a month.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think that was real. I did not think that kind of money was real, right? Like
Right.
$10,000 a month back then was $1 million to me. So
Right.
what he said to me was this. He said, look, be a good person when the school kids come around and they sell books, you can buy 2 or 3 of them, or you can be a rich person and you can be a good person. And when they come around, you can say, how many books do you have? And you can buy all of them. Which one of us did more? Yeah, you did what you could,
Right.
but I did everything that they needed.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. I mean,
When the ladies come around for donating for the church, and Nick, you can donate $100 on a really good day, and they come by and I can do $10,000. Which of us did more? He goes, granted, like it does. It's saying that you're a bad person. It's saying when you have money, you can do more people.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
Sean says that same thing in a different way, but
Yeah.
that was the very first way that I was exposed to it. And I was like, yeah, I want to buy all the books,
Right.
but I can't afford it, because if I bought all books, then I would be able to go take my kids to dinner. So
Yeah.
yeah, I do need to.
Yeah. I mean, everything that we need to like be successful is right here. It's right, like our little phones, our computers, it's all right there. But a lot of us get so wrapped up in like the programming of what we were taught when we were kids, or how we grew up, or what we see on TV. It's like, I talk about this all the time. You have the ability to break those chains and think and believe in yourself and be worthy, that I'm going to read all these books. I'm going to listen to all these podcasts. I'm going to be around all these amazing people. I'm going to hang out with people that are more successful than me, because I'm worthy of doing that. And I think today's society, a lot of us don't believe that. And we have to feel lucky that we do know that is capable of, of oneself. And we want to share that, even through like your gun holster company. I mean, if you guys don't know, Nick goes live almost every day on Instagram, and he talks to people constantly. And what happens with that? Even with here, I'm growing all these connections with people. My connections are expanding because of like you going live, because of me going on YouTube, and we're making a difference in the world, which gives us, back. It fills up our cup, and we know that we are worthy, because we want to know and learn to believe that we are worthy through all these things. It's crazy.
So
It's all right
so
here. It's all right there.
we talked about this on I want to touch on it because I want to congratulate you on starting this YouTube channel, getting these videos done. We talked about it on live where you said, hey, I started a YouTube channel. Okay, cool. We talked about it. And I go, wait, you just started this like 10 weeks ago? and you've already did how many videos, and you're gonna have who on, and you're gonna do all, and you're following this lead, like that's awesome. And
Thank-
every time I talk to somebody, you or Michael Dean or Tom Reber, anybody who says, hey, going on your live sparked me to do, or seeing you go live sparked me to do this. I don't know how many holsters I sell, all of that stuff is, but I have market for that.
Yeah.
The helping other people see the potential in themselves, see
Oh,
the potential what we're doing with lives, with what we're doing, bring people out of the instant and putting them into YouTube, into Instagram Live, onto a podcast. Like that's the real value fee, because the
yes.
video that you're going to post, or the videos that you've already posted, eventually, one, they're going to help some. Two, they're going to bring somebody into my network. Someone's going to see you, see that you came on live, and they're going to follow me on Instagram. They're going to come into my network, and they're going to buy a holster. I guarantee it. I know who, I don't know when, but it's going to happen.
Yeah.
On top of that, some of these videos are going to make you money, which are allow you to cut someone's hair for free because you're making so much money on your
Right.
YouTube video. It's
Right.
going to make a huge difference in someone's life.
Right.
And if I can say, oh yeah, her on my live, met her at Lions Den Live, and I had like this much of an influence on what she did, that if I do that 1,000 times with other people,
Yeah.
I've had success in what I tried to do doing the lives.
It's amazing.
So,
I don't even know how I started following you, because I started following you before Lions Den Live, and I had sent you a message before Lions Den Live, and I was like, oh, he's too busy, you know, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't like that confident. Right. And then I reached out again, because when I was watching you like interview these people, I was like, dude, that's cool. Like, I think I can do that. And then I went to Lions Den Live, and then it was like, you know, God was speaking to me right through all these people, was like, you need to start a YouTube channel. And they all talked about like, why are you going to wait? Why are you going to wait for the music intro? Why are you going to wait for like a cool logo? I didn't have any of that. I was like, I didn't know what the hell I'm doing. Of course, it gets a little bit better every time, because the
it's
first episode
taken
is
me
gonna suck.
a
Like
hundred,
one
a
week,
hundred episodes.
yeah. You know, one week I was going to do
So
this.
it's taken 100 episodes to figure what I want to do, right? So I set this outrageous goal of doing 300 interviews, and then I started to lose my drive, right? The last month,
Yeah.
like I really started to lose my drive. Like I've fallen off on some of the calls, and like I told Brenda the other day, I'm like, I think I really want to turn into a real podcast. Like, the audio sucks. I don't think Instagram platform where people are going to see these lives. It ran its course. It did what it do. Now I think that I'm gonna pull it into something more like this, right? And
Right.
some having you come live and talk to me about this. This is really like, I talk to you, I talk to Ryan Robbins and with
Yeah.
Fireside America, and I'm like, okay, this has to become something real.
Right.
Like the next 200 episodes are going to be a progression of what Instagram Live was. So what Live Every Day was, maybe podcast 4 times a week or
Yeah.
something, but it's gotta grow. And that's because of all of you guys helping to do that. But it was, I mean, in the very beginning, it was 2-3 times a day. It was, how do I get 25 interviews before live? We only had and a half. Then
Wow.
it was, how do I get 40? How
Yeah.
do I get Sean Whalen to the last interview before his live event?
Yeah. That
And
was,
that was it. That was what I cared about. And I had the
yeah.
video. I made the intro for Sean a month before I even asked him to do it. I
That's,
sent it to like 5 people and I said, just so you know, this is going to happen.
that's amazing. That's amazing. And you just manifested it. And that I talk about this all the time. Like, that's the power of manifestation. It's like you actually did a vision board with that. You know what I mean? And going back to what you said, like, I think when you were talking with Daniel Dukeman, is when you know, because people ask me like, why do you do this? Why do you do this? And it's like, like you said, when you guys were chatting, it's that one person that's going to watch one of my videos and I'm going to change their lives.
Yep.
It's that one family member that has been looking for a video that can help their family member and change their person's life. It's connection.
So the conversation,
It's
so I
cool.
don't know if you watched the interview with Ryan Robbins, but the reason came on and did my live was because my passion getting people started. And
Yeah.
he said, and I had made a comment, and I said, not doing it as big as you are. And he said, disagree. And kind of set me because yeah, right, I am doing it pretty big, like just in a different way. My goal beginning was, I wanted to get back on Sean's radar. Yeah, I wanted to get on everybody in Lions Den's radar before it's in live, and I wanted to do something big. But all I wanted to started.
Yeah.
And something that like I'm passionate about is like, you have to start some. And even with our podcast, like we have the Range Minded Pods. I tell Steve all the time, host, I'm like, dude, we have to get everyday people, because everyday people is where our stories told.
Yeah.
And two, there has to be a first time. Like you have to get in the first time before you're comfortable to do it another time and another time. And that's what it took for me.
Yeah.
Like it literally took Sean Whalen stealing my thunder with being on a podcast to make shit. You've got to do it the first time or you're never going to do it. So I can, and the reason my platform became like very laid back and people were like, what are we going to talk about? I'm like, I don't know what we're going to talk about. I'm going to ask you 3 questions and we're going to go from there, because I want you to be comfortable. I want you to feel like this was a enjoyable experience and you learned something and you want to do it again. So then when your business grows, the news calls you, Joe Rogan calls you, like somebody calls you to be on a big show, you're like, oh yeah, I already did this on Nick's podcast. Like this is gonna be nothing. Like,
right.
You've got to start somewhere, right?
You have to start somewhere. And for all those viewers out there who's watching this episode, like this is a great, thing to talk about, is that you have
I also
to start
hate
somewhere.
And interrupts. I also hate when people tell me I have enough to talk about, I can't do it. Because when people like, I have so many people at Lost in Live that were like, oh, I love the lives that you're doing. It's great. I watch all of them. And I'm like, cool. When are you coming on? They're like, oh, no. And they're like, I have nothing to talk about. I had 3 of them all talked out, by the way. And they're like, I have nothing about. And I'm like, absolutely you do. You're at Lions Den Live. Like there's 2,000 people sitting around you. And I go, right now I'm looking at Dan Fleyshman. Like you're in a room with Dan Fleyshman. You can't talk about that.
Yeah, there's your story right there. Like how did you become to get into this group, and watch all these, that's a story right there, and so
I have been working so hard to learn my story to tell on shows and podcast interviews that I've probably told 100 different stories. One of which is the first live event I ever went to was in a room with every major Instagram and YouTube influencer the world at various live event. You know who the guy talking on stage was?
No, who?
Gary.
Oh.
I stood 10 feet from the stage while Gary Vee stood on stage.
Wow.
I had no idea he's going to be there.
Wow.
I go in the elevator with Barrows Cooling, met him and his son, talked to him 10 minutes. We were walking in the building. No idea who he was. The next time I saw him, he was speaking on Fox News about having one of the largest gym franchises in the country. Fetty Boot Camp.
Dang. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. But
I showed up in that room, and that was the friend that I met on Whalen in person. And he walked in and he goes, what the hell are you here? And I looked at him, I go, I have no idea. What are you? I didn't even know you're going to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing when you take like a leap of faith, like when you don't overthink anything, right? You just like get in there. Like you don't know what's going to happen. and you don't know anything about, I mean, I didn't know what was going to happen at Lions Den Live, for example, but Sean always says, like, don't overthink anything if it's going to add value to you. And so ever since then, and that was like the first interview that I saw when I joined the Lions Den. And ever since then, I have led my life in that direction where I'm going to do something if it's going to add value to my life. I don't care if I have to move clients around. I don't care if I have to like go somewhere, come back home and go right back out to another event. Like, don't ever, you guys, like, don't ever make up excuses for your life to not do something if it's going to add value, because years are going to go by and you're going to be like, I wish I did this. I wish I did that, and I was talking about the other day, like, even with Scott and Ann, if I didn't like think that they were going to add value to my life, I wouldn't have asked the question of like, hey, do you guys want to come on like on one of the biggest episodes that I'm going to
So
talk about?
tell me this, when you asked them to come on, were you hesitant to ask them?
So what had happened was, like, I had been wanting to talk about, dealing with a family member or a friend that has an addiction. It was something that I was pushing to the side that I knew I wanted to talk about this whole time, and I was scared to do it. I didn't want to hurt anybody because, I have a family member that has an addiction, and I was really scared to talk about it. I don't know why. I felt like I just didn't want to hurt anybody, but I'm like, Brittany, this is not going to hurt anybody. It's going to help the one person. And it's because at Lions Den Live, when Scott told his story, talked about his son at some point, and then we all gathered at the end, and I went up to him and I was like, thank you for sharing that story. And I asked him a couple questions and I was like, yeah. And so when I knew I wanted to talk about it, I kind of was like, maybe I'll make a video in the Lions Den, and maybe someone will, want to talk to me about it. And then I just kind of prayed about it. And then the next morning is when I thought about that conversation with Scott, because I was like, I'm going to go up to him. I'm not afraid. This is my family. You
You know
really,
what I
that,
love
like,
about
and
Scott
they said,
is
yes.
that said, Scott made like a declaration that he would say yes more. And so it is very rare that I've ever seen Scott turn down to do something. And that's why, like, when I was starting my live series, I asked all of those guys. I was like, I know the people won't tell me no. The people who won't tell me no are the people that live by the thing we learn in the Lions Den.
Right.
And people can call it the A-Team, like Sean's crew. Like, those guys don't say no if it falls in line with what they're trying to do.
Right. 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 And it was just, I couldn't have asked for a better interview for that particular moment,
Oh,
because
absolutely. It's the story that they have with their son
yeah,
and parts that they shared at Lions Live. And obviously
yeah,
I'm gonna listen to your episode, listen to what they had to say, because same thing for me. Like I have spoken a lot about having a family member from the child side. Like I
yeah,
have actually, when I was first like as an adult, when my dad first got out of prison and was going through all of his like stuff for counseling, we used to speak at high schools, and that was like a big deal for me, was going to the high school and listening to him and then telling the students like to, one, have your parent in prison, and two, not know if they're going to show up to pick you up on the week that you're supposed to go to their house, because they
right,
didn't know if they want you or not.
right, right, right. I mean, like, going through that, you will always have a story. And if you know that, like, you can use that to help somebody, is a gift,
Yeah.
and I know that, like, Scott and Nan had that gift. I'm sure it took a lot of work obviously it took a lot of work. It took a lot of work for me to even go through all these years of learning about what it really means to have a family member with an addiction, like, and how to help them and how to not help them and how to let go and how to, like, ask questions. And, I mean, the power of connections is the real beauty in all of this. I actually was talking to Daniel about this because he texted me, he's like, oh, Britt, the fly-ins are coming. I was like, oh, what, they are, like I'm all looking, and there's a women's event. I got to be there. I don't know how I'm going to be there. My schedule is packed that week. I'm already coming back from a trip like 2 weeks prior to that, and I'm going to make it happen because that's going to be amazing. I have to be there. That's going to be so valuable for me. And that's the point of like what I'm saying is, like add value to your life, and you got to take some risky, opportunities. They're not risky, but they might be risky, and leaving your work or leaving your home and not making money that day or whatever. You can't just keep chasing like, oh, I'm going to be making money this day. I'm going to go and add value to my life to make more money the following day. And the connections that you make, in the den and through your live events, like don't you feel like every time I talk to someone, I'm like, sweet, this person's going to be in my life forever. Like it just grows even more.
So I notice all the time.
It's so cool.
I've got to wrap it up, but finish it with this. So I notice this all the time. The people who are in my stories, the people who I post, those are all the people that have been in my lives. The people who are asking me to be a part of their groups, the people who are asking me to speak at their events, the people who are asking for opinions, who are engaging heavily in my content. Those are the people that I have brought onto my lives and have become family friend with. Like I have the Lions Den, but then I also have my group of like 98 people that I know. They know exactly who I am, what I'm about, and if they need something, they ask me, and if I need something, I ask them. You being one of them.
Absolutely. And like, right. And, right back at you, I mean, that is the most beautiful thing about this family. And it just expands into other little powerful families.
People are going to start noticing that. People are going to start noticing when they talk like, oh, well, what is the Lions Den? What is this? And they're going to start noticing you were my live. I was on your podcast. Scott was on mine. Dr. D was on my live. Dr. D is on yours. I'm beyond Dr. D's podcast. And all of a sudden, this spider web starts to like unravel. People start seeing behind the curtain. They're going, what in the hell is going on?
Absolutely.
Who are the people? And that's how things are going to grow exponentially for every single person involved that gets involved and starts putting in work. And I see it start to grow already. It's gonna take time and it's gonna evolve. So I've got to go off here. I just haven't seen or Clara today since practice. I'm gonna go have dinner. And I appreciate you so much for being patient to jump on here. I'm glad that I got to share some parts of my story that I have not shared on any other podcasts. And so, and that's saying a lot. I've done over 200 episodes, and I don't share a lot that's past like 2017. So I'm glad that you break out, and I'm slowly starting to dial that in. Like I said at the beginning, I'm really working on Dan's book. So that's a great book. I'm trying to dial in the story and get it right. So thank you guys for allowing me to work on that tonight.
Absolutely. And thank you. That means a lot to me, so I appreciate you sharing your story. I appreciate the value. And I will actually put that book into the link for you guys that are wondering what he's talking about. It's a fabulous book. And just thank you for being vulnerable, Nick, and sharing who you are with this world. And I appreciate you so much. So thank you.
So anybody who's looking to get a hold of me, at Hoffer.com. And you can find all my links on that website. So thank you. Appreciate it. Let me know when this goes live, and I will share it out across all of our platforms.
Awesome.
Brittany, thank you so much for having me on. Have a great week.
You too, man. And enjoy your family tonight.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna jump out of here.
Bye.